Rain hammered the asphalt as Captain Sarah Mitchell stood at Fort Bragg's gate. No rank, no badge, 23 years erased with a single signature. 2 MPs flanked her like ghosts of loyalty lost. She clutched her discharge papers, the ink bled from the downpour, her fury barely contained. From a rain-streaked window above, Colonel Hartford watched, smirking. Protocol was broken. This wasn't just discharge. It was exile. As a Humvee roared past, her blurred reflection caught her eye. Civilian now, but far from finished. Then came the alarm. Sirens wailed. Troops scattered. A shadow swept overhead. Rotor blades thundered through the sky. Sarah didn't flinch. She just whispered, low, cold, certain. Took you long enough. Have you ever been underestimated because of how you look? Where are you watching from today? The question hangs in the air like the morning mist, as Sarah Mitchell turns from the gate, her footsteps measured and deliberate despite the weight crushing her chest. 23 years of service, countless missions, languages mastered, all reduced to this moment of public disgrace. The younger officers who mockingly called her soccer mom behind her back now watch openly, some with pity, others with the cruel satisfaction of seeing someone brought low. But as Sarah reaches the edge of the base perimeter, she pauses, turns back one final time, and allows herself the smallest of smiles, an expression so fleeting that the security cameras almost miss it, a look that suggests this humiliation might be exactly what she wanted. Captain Sarah Mitchell is 42 years old, though the stress of the last 72 hours has added lines around her green eyes that weren't there before. An intelligence officer, fluent in 7 languages, Arabic, Mandarin, Russian, Farsi, Spanish, Korean, and Pashto, she spent her career in rooms where decisions affecting thousands are made by people who never see the consequences. Her husband, Major David Mitchell, was killed in action in Afghanistan in 2019, leaving her to raise their daughter Emma alone while maintaining her cover as just another administrative officer shuffling papers at Fort Bragg. The nickname Soccer Mom started as a joke among the younger male officers, who couldn't reconcile her modest appearance, minimal makeup, simple clothes, a 10-year-old Honda Civic in the parking lot, with her position in military intelligence. They never knew about the nights she spent decoding intercepted communications, or the reports she filed that prevented 3 separate terrorist attacks on American soil. Her recent assignment to teaching basic intelligence protocols to new recruits felt like a demotion, but Sarah accepted it with the same quiet professionalism that defined her entire career. The night before her discharge, Sarah sits in her modest off-base apartment, laptop open to a video call, with her daughter Emma, now a cadet at West Point. The young woman's face fills the screen, her father's strong jaw combined with her mother's penetrating gaze, creating a striking combination of strength and intelligence. Emma's brow furrows as she studies her mother's face through the pixelated connection. The exhaustion Sarah has been hiding for days bleeds through despite her best efforts. When Emma mentions how tired her mother looks, Sarah forces a smile that doesn't reach her eyes, the kind of expression she's perfected through years of maintaining cover stories. But Emma inherited more than just her parents' looks. She has their instincts too, and she calls her mother out on the obvious lie with the directness that made David proud. Sarah's voice cracks when she tells her daughter to study hard, to make her father proud, and when Emma presses for answers about what's wrong, Sarah can only manage to tell her she loves her before abruptly ending the call, unable to maintain her composure any longer. Colonel James Hartford represents everything wrong with the modern military's old guard. A 55-year-old career officer from a military family that traces its service back to the Civil War, he views female officers as diversity checkboxes rather than capable soldiers. Since his appointment as base commander 6 months ago, he systematically removed women from key positions, always with plausible explanations that HR couldn't challenge. Restructuring, efficiency improvements, new protocols that somehow always disadvantaged female officers. His connection to Senator Davidson's Defense Committee gives him political cover for his actions, and he surrounds himself with younger male officers who share his worldview or are too ambitious to challenge it. Hartford's office walls display photos of him with various politicians and defense contractors, a visual reminder of the power he wields beyond just military rank. When Sarah Mitchell first reported discrepancies in supply chain records, weapons shipments that didn't match inventory, ammunition counts that were off by thousands of rounds, Hartford dismissed her concerns as the overthinking of someone trying too hard to prove herself. But Sarah persisted, following proper channels, filing formal requests for investigation, documenting every irregularity with the meticulous attention to detail that made her exceptional at intelligence work. Hartford's response was swift and brutal. He accused her of insubordination, of overstepping her authority, of creating problems where none existed. Behind closed doors, he orchestrated her downfall with military precision, planting classified documents in her personal vehicle during a routine security sweep, ensuring they would be discovered by MPs who had no idea they were pawns in a larger game. The base-wide email announcing her security breach and immediate discharge was sent at 0530 hours, timed to ensure maximum visibility as personnel arrived for morning formation. Sarah's security clearance was revoked before she even knew she was under investigation. Her former teammates ordered not to contact her under threat of their own careers, and by afternoon, local news had picked up the story of the female officer discharged for compromising national security. 24 hours after her public humiliation, Sarah sits in a diner 15 miles outside town, stirring coffee that went cold an hour ago, when a black SUV with tinted windows pulls into the empty parking lot. The door opens and a voice calls out her rank and name, adding that General Thompson sends his regards. Sarah doesn't move from her booth, her hand instinctively moving toward where her service weapon used to sit, as she responds that Thompson has been dead for 2 years. The voice from inside the vehicle acknowledges this fact and simply says to get in. Inside the SUV, the director of the Defense Intelligence Agency sits with a file 3 inches thick, explaining that her discharge was not only expected, but necessary, for an operation months in the planning. The DIA has been monitoring Hartford's activities, tracking weapons disappearing from inventory, shipments rerouted to destinations that don't exist on any official manifest, and a network of corruption that reaches into the highest levels of the Pentagon. What would you do if everyone you trusted turned against you? Let me know in the comments. The revelation that Sarah's disgrace was orchestrated by her own government should feel like betrayal, but instead it brings a cold clarity to everything that's happened. The DIA needed someone inside Hartford's inner circle, someone he would underestimate and dismiss, someone whose competence was hidden beneath an exterior he would find non-threatening. Sarah's genuine shock at the planted documents, her authentic emotional response to the discharge, were crucial for Hartford to believe he had won. The psychology is simple but effective. Arrogant men like Hartford only trust those they've personally destroyed, seeing them as proof of their power and examples to others who might challenge them. Sarah's public humiliation makes her irresistible to the network, a competent officer brought low, desperate for redemption, invisible to official oversight because she's already been discarded by the system. Operation Silent Eagle has been in development for 18 months, targeting a network selling military weapons to cartels and foreign interests, with over $500 million in advanced weaponry lost through altered inventory records and fabricated training exercises. Hartford's role as the inside facilitator was confirmed through intercepted communications, but the DIA needed proof that would stand up in court and expose the entire network, not just one corrupt colonel. The Congressional Oversight Committee tasked with monitoring military inventory has been compromised, with at least 3 members receiving campaign contributions traced to shell companies linked to the weapons sales. Sarah's mission parameters are clear: infiltrate the network by appearing desperate and morally flexible, gather evidence of the next shipment worth $50 million in advanced weaponry, and identify the ultimate buyers who remain shadows in even the DIA's extensive files. She has 72 hours before the next shipment moves, and Hartford has already scheduled a meeting with his contractors for tomorrow night. A meeting where Sarah must appear as a reformed officer, seeking redemption and willing to compromise her principles for financial security. The team assembled for this operation reads like a roster of the professionally destroyed. Master Sergeant Deanna Chen, a cyber warfare specialist, discharged for mental health issues after she questioned orders to delete server logs. Lieutenant Tom Bradley, a former Navy SEAL whose training accident left him with a convenient medical discharge just weeks after he reported suspicious activity at a weapons depot. Captain Marcus Washington, a military lawyer whose ethics violation was raising concerns about procurement contracts with companies that didn't seem to exist. Each of them was systematically destroyed by the network they now hunt, their careers sacrificed to maintain the conspiracy's secrecy. Operating from an abandoned CIA safe house 40 miles from Fort Bragg, They've spent weeks preparing for this moment, creating false identities, establishing cover stories, and practicing the roles they must play to convince Hartford and his associates that they're broken soldiers willing to sell their souls for a second chance. The stakes become personal when the team intercepts an encrypted communication revealing General Patricia Morrison's involvement, the Pentagon's deputy chief of staff and Sarah's mentor for 15 years. Morrison was the one who delivered the news of David's death, who held Sarah as she sobbed, who guided her toward safer intelligence roles, away from field operations. The betrayal cuts deeper than any physical wound, as Sarah realizes every kindness, every piece of advice, every motherly gesture was calculated to keep her from discovering the truth about her husband's death. The encrypted files reveal Morrison has been feeding Hartford information about internal investigations, warning him which supply audits to prepare for, which investigators could be compromised or threatened. Outrage fans, Marschlag, Stunt Woman, December 19th, 16th, but it's the detail about David's death that transforms Sarah's professional dedication into personal vengeance. His helicopter didn't malfunction. It was sabotaged to prevent him from exposing the network's existence. Flashback to 2019. Major David Mitchell had been investigating supply irregularities in Afghanistan for 3 months, tracking weapons that disappeared between shipping manifests and arrival confirmations. His meticulous nature, the same trait that made him an exceptional officer and devoted husband, led him to compile evidence that connected missing weapons to specific officers and contractors. The helicopter malfunction that killed him and 5 other soldiers was attributed to mechanical failure in harsh conditions, but the encrypted files tell a different story. Explosive residue found but not reported. Flight recorder data altered. Witnesses transferred to different bases within days. Morrison personally delivered the death notification to Sarah, a touch that seemed compassionate at the time, but now reveals itself as ensuring Sarah heard the official version first, that her grief would cloud any suspicion about the circumstances. The way Morrison comforted her, became a surrogate mother figure, pushed her toward intelligence analysis rather than field work. Every gesture now reeks of manipulation and murder. In their modest home, David had left insurance beyond any life policy. Encrypted files hidden in their daughter Emma's old teddy bear, the one she couldn't bear to take to West Point. The one that still sits on the shelf in Sarah's apartment. Chen's decryption reveals 5 years of evidence, David's personal investigation that he kept secret even from his wife to protect her. The files contain photographs, financial records, communication logs, and a list of names that reaches into every branch of the military. David was days from presenting his findings to the Inspector General when his helicopter fell from the sky, and his final encrypted message, dated the night before his death, simply reads, "If something happens to me, trust no one in uniform. Protect Sarah, protect Emma. The foundation is rotten." The revelation that Morrison orchestrated the death of the man who called Sarah the strongest operative he'd ever known transforms grief into cold, calculating fury. The mission parameters shift with Morrison's involvement. Official channels are compromised, Morrison has eyes throughout the Pentagon, and every traditional avenue for justice is blocked by people who owe their careers to the network. The team must retrieve evidence from Hartford's office at Fort Bragg and Morrison's Pentagon files within 48 hours before the weapons shipment disappears into the shadows of international arms dealing. But Morrison, with the strategic mind that made her a general, makes the stakes personal with a single phone call to Sarah's burner phone. Her voice carries the same maternal warmth that once comforted a widow. "I heard about your discharge. Such a shame. You had such potential." The mention of Emma comes next, wrapped in concern but dripping with threat. "She's doing wonderfully at West Point, top of her class. As her sponsor, I feel responsible for her future." The implication is clear: cooperate and disappear, or Emma suffers the same fate as her father. The infiltration of Fort Bragg begins at 0200 hours, with Bradley disabling perimeter sensors while Chen loops security camera feeds to show empty corridors and rain-slipped grounds. Sarah leads them through maintenance tunnels she discovered as a lieutenant 20 years ago, passages forgotten in newer security protocols, but still accessible to someone who knows where outdated construction merged with modern facilities. The irony isn't lost on her. Returning like a thief to the base that trained her, sneaking through shadows in the place where she once walked with pride. Hartford's office occupies a corner of the command building. his ego evident in every detail, from the oversized desk to the portraits of military leaders he imagines himself equal to. The safe hidden behind Patton's portrait opens to a combination Sarah deduces from Hartford's psychology, his promotion date to colonel, a moment he references in every speech, every conversation, every reminder of his importance. Inside the safe, files reveal the true scope of the conspiracy. The buyer is a Chinese intelligence front company, operating through 7 shell corporations. Morrison stands to receive $10 million in commission deposited across 14 offshore accounts. And photographs show Morrison meeting with foreign agents at international defense conferences, where such contact could be explained as diplomatic necessity. The weapons manifest lists next-generation targeting systems, encrypted communication devices, and enough ammunition to supply a small army, all reported as training losses or maintenance write-offs. But as Sarah photographs the evidence, Hartford's voice cuts through the darkness. "Did you really think we didn't know?" He stands in the doorway, service weapon drawn, while Morrison's voice crackles through his secure phone. "Kill her, make it look like she broke in. We'll spin it as a disgraced officer seeking revenge." The trap they walked into was deliberate, Morrison and Hartford allowing the infiltration to create the perfect narrative. Unstable woman breaks into base, forces deadly response. But Sarah Mitchell is not the simple woman they dismissed, not the soccer mom they mocked, not the grieving widow they thought they'd broken. In the darkness of Hartford's office, she reveals the truth hidden beneath 2 decades of careful cover. Former Delta Force operator, the only woman to complete selection in 2001, veteran of classified operations in 12 countries that don't exist in any official record. The soccer mom persona, the modest appearance, the quiet dedication to intelligence work, all deep cover for someone whose true capabilities were hidden in files even Morrison couldn't access. Hartford's arrogance becomes his downfall as Sarah moves with practiced efficiency, muscle memory from thousands of hours of close-quarters combat training taking over. In 30 seconds, Hartford is disarmed and subdued, his weapon kicked across the room, his body pinned in a hold that could snap his neck with 2 pounds more pressure. Bradley's signal for emergency extraction brings the thunder of rotor blades as a Blackhawk helicopter descends onto Fort Bragg's parade ground, the same space where Sarah once received commendations, now serving as the stage for her vindication. But this isn't a standard military aircraft. It bears the markings of the Joint Chiefs Security Detail, and as the ramp lowers, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs himself steps onto the rain-soaked tarmac. His presence here, at this hour, in person rather than through subordinates, speaks to the gravity of what's been uncovered. "Captain Mitchell," he says, his voice carrying over the helicopter's dying engines. "The President sends his regards." The soldiers who witnessed Sarah's humiliation now watch from windows and doorways as the highest-ranking military officer in the nation personally validates her actions, making it clear that her disgrace was service, not shame. Morrison arrives within minutes, her Pentagon helicopter touching down with an escort that suggests she still believes her rank provides protection. She emerges wearing full dress uniform, every medal and ribbon in place, playing the part of a distinguished general responding to a security breach at a critical installation. Her performance is flawless, shock at finding Hartford subdued, concern for the chain of command being violated, indignation that a discharged officer has penetrated base security. But when Sarah presents the evidence, photographs, financial records, the documentation of David's murder, Morrison's mask slips for just a moment, revealing the calculating predator beneath. In desperation, she draws her service weapon and grabs Hartford as a human shield, pressing the barrel against his temple while backing toward the door. "You always were too much like David," she snarls, never knowing when to leave things alone. Sarah stands perfectly still, her posture relaxed, despite the weapon pointed in her direction, Hartford's whimpering the only sound besides the rain drumming on the roof. Morrison demands safe passage, a helicopter, and diplomatic immunity she believes her rank still commands. But Sarah Mitchell, trained sniper with 8 confirmed kills in operations that don't exist, simply shifts her weight slightly and draws her concealed weapon in one fluid motion. The shot is precise. Morrison's hand explodes in red as the bullet destroys her grip, sending her weapon spinning across the floor. "I never miss what I aim for, General," Sarah says quietly as Morrison falls to her knees, cradling her shattered hand. "That was for David. The next one won't be so merciful." Military police flood the room, but they defer to the chairman's security detail, who already have custody protocols in place for generals accused of treason. Who do you think the real traitor is? Share your theory below, before part 2 drops. The immediate aftermath unfolds with military efficiency. Morrison and Hartford are arrested on charges ranging from treason to murder, their rights read by prosecutors who've been building cases in secret for months. 17 other conspirators are identified within hours, a network spanning from supply sergeants to Pentagon officials, each believing they were protected by those above them in the conspiracy. $2 billion in stolen weapons are tracked to warehouses in Mexico, Colombia, and locations still being verified by international law enforcement. The network that took years to build collapses in days, its members turning on each other for plea deals, each revelation exposing another layer of corruption that reached into offices where American security policy is decided. The base-wide assembly called 48 hours later serves as both vindication and warning. Every soldier stationed at Fort Bragg stands in formation as the chairman personally reinstates Sarah Mitchell to active duty, her rank restored with back pay and benefits as if the discharge never happened. But more than restoration, she receives promotion to lieutenant colonel, a rank commensurate with her true service record, now that her classified operations can be acknowledged within military channels. Her new assignment to Pentagon Special Investigations Unit comes with the authority to pursue corruption wherever it leads, answering only to the chairman and select members of the National Security Council. The same soldiers who recorded her humiliation now render salutes with genuine respect, understanding that they witnessed not a disgrace but a deception that saved national security. Emma arrives on emergency leave from West Point, her cadet uniform crisp despite the cross-country flight, her face showing the same determined composure her mother displayed through the ordeal. Their reunion in Sarah's temporary quarters breaks through both women's military bearing, as tears flow freely for the first time since David's death. Emma reveals she's been conducting her own investigation, using skills inherited from both parents and honed at the academy. She found her father's real journal hidden in her dorm room, placed there by David himself during his last visit before deployment. His entries detail not just the conspiracy but his pride in Sarah's capabilities. "She's the strongest operative I've ever known, better than any team I've commanded. If something happens to me, she'll finish what I started." Emma's choice to follow the intelligence track rather than combat arms makes perfect sense now. She's her parents' daughter in every way. But the conspiracy's tentacles extend beyond those arrested, as evidenced by an anonymous tip delivered through channels only someone with the highest clearance could access. This goes higher than you know. Hartford and Morrison were middle management. The real architects remain hidden. Senator Davidson's sudden resignation for health reasons raises questions nobody in the media seems willing to ask. 3 more generals announce early retirement within a week, their departures framed as routine, but timed too perfectly to be coincidental. The weapons recovered represent only a fraction of what inventory records suggest went missing over the decade-long operation. Foreign intelligence services begin sharing information about American weapons appearing in conflict zones where they were never authorized, suggesting the network Sarah exposed was just one arm of something larger. Sarah's recruitment to lead Project Homecoming comes with a classified briefing that would shake public faith in military leadership if revealed. Foreign intelligence penetration of the U.S. military has reached levels not seen since the Cold War, with agents embedded at multiple levels using America's own weapons against its interests. The task force she'll lead operates outside traditional military structure, reporting through channels that officially don't exist, with authority to investigate anyone, regardless of rank or political connection. Her first assignment arrives in a sealed envelope delivered by courier, a single photograph of an unknown officer in dress uniform, no name or identification visible. The attached note, written in David's handwriting, though dated after his death, simply states, "Your husband's real killer, trust the source, finish this." The visit to Arlington National Cemetery brings both women full circle, standing before David's headstone as morning sun breaks through storm clouds. Emma places her West Point insignia on the marble, a daughter's promise to continue her father's service, while Sarah adds his recovered medals, honors that were stripped from his record by those who killed him, now restored by truth. "I kept my promise, David," Sarah whispers to the stone, her voice steady despite tears. "We both did." The distant thrum of helicopter rotors grows louder as a Blackhawk approaches, not the machine that began this journey, but one that signals its continuation. Emma straightens, renders a perfect salute as her mother turns toward duty once more. "Go, Mom," she says with David's smile. "Dad would understand, he always did." Sarah boards the Blackhawk without looking back, her simple civilian clothes replaced by tactical gear, her soccer mom persona shed like an outgrown disguise. Through the helicopter's open door, the briefing board is visible. Photographs of military officers, politicians, defense contractors connected by red string like a conspiracy theorist's dream made real. One photograph in the center remains obscured by shadow, but Sarah knows that Face waits at the end of this mission, the architect of her husband's murder, and a conspiracy that treats American weapons as commodities and soldiers' lives as acceptable losses. The radio crackles with her new call sign. Phoenix 1, you're needed at the Pentagon, priority Alpha. Below, Emma watches until the helicopter disappears, then returns to her father's grave for a moment of private prayer, before returning to West Point, where she'll prepare for her own war against enemies who wear American uniforms. The truth isn't over, it's just beginning. Sarah Mitchell, once dismissed as a simple woman, has become the weapon pointed at corruption's heart, wielding justice for those who thought themselves untouchable. But every conspiracy has layers, and each victory reveals new enemies who learned from Hartford and Morrison's mistakes. The real war isn't fought on foreign battlefields, but in the shadows of American institutions, where loyalty is bought, sold, and betrayed for profit. As the Blackhawk carries Sarah toward her next mission, one truth remains constant. Those who underestimate the overlooked, who dismiss the dedicated as simple, who mistake quiet competence for weakness, learn too late that the most dangerous soldiers are those with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. The storm that began with a woman standing in the rain at Fort Bragg's gates has become a hurricane that will reshape American military justice, one traitor at a time.